I texted her. So she's coming.
I'll call the August 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And we'll start with roll call.
Drew Goodner, Frost Rollins, here. Amy Sorrells,
Here.
Kim White,
Here.
Marty Heffron,
Here.
Letitia Smith, Mary Boyd.
Here.
We have the minutes for July 13th, 2022. Did everybody have a chance to review those? Do you have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented for July 13th.
Second. Frost Rollins, Amy Sorrell,
Yes.
Kim White,
Yes.
Marty Heffron,
Yes.
Mary Boyd.
Yes. Okay, I have opening remarks to make. Any person aggrieved by any decision of the board may, within 15 days after such decision, appeal to the circuit court having jurisdiction according to section 908.02 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Auburn, Alabama. The board consists of 5 regular members and 2 supernumeraries. The supernumeraries participate in all discussions, but only vote when necessary to assure 4 voting members and have a board consisting of 5 members when possible. All decisions are made with a roll call vote, and a concurring vote of 4 members is required to approve an application for a variance. So today, Mary Boyd will be acting as our supernumerary, because Letitia is absent. Okay, we'll start with new business.
The first case on today's agenda is for 2 variances to section 42906 of the corridor overlay regulations for property located at 1101 South College Street in the South College Corridor District. The first request is for a variance to allow a car wash bay opening to face South College Street. And the second advertised request is for a variance to allow a fence in the front yard to exceed 4 feet in height. Here's an aerial of the site. It's near the corner of Donahue and College Street. New River Bank and Trust Bank is here on the corner, and there's some strip development here to the south. Here's the Prox map. The property, like I mentioned, is zoned South College Corridor District. There's some PDD across the street, across South College, and behind the subject property, DDH over to the north, and property owned by the university is also across the street. Here's a site plan of the development. This is different than the site plan that was included in your packet. The applicant updated this yesterday to show landscaping on the street frontage that would help to block the car wash opening that faces South College. The reason for that, the request is because our corridor overlay regulations require that car wash bays are faced no less than a right angle to the street frontage. And we did also advertise a request for the variance to allow a fence in the front yard to exceed 4 feet. I believe the applicant will withdraw that request and speak to you about how they propose the landscaping to mitigate those factors. Here is a photo of the site. You can see that the elevation, there is a grade change from South College up to the site. This is from the south looking north up at Donahue. And this is looking south towards the interstate. We do recommend denial of the variance. After a review, we found that the requests were non-compliant with the review criteria. Here to answer any questions that you might have.
Does the addition of the landscaping alter anything in your report?
It does not. All right. Thanks.
Is the applicant here? All right, if you'd like to speak, please come up. And if you've,
Sorry?
if you haven't signed in, if you wouldn't mind.
Do that now? Oh.
Ma'am, when you speak, can you speak into the microphone because they can't hear you out here?
Okay.
Rather not.
Tisha had an emergency at work, so that's why she's not here. Oh.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Timothy Wood, and I am with Civil Logistics, and just wanted to come in here and discuss this a little bit. Our client is Ultraman, and we are working on a Big Dan's car wash. And so what we're wanting to do with this is we'd like to keep it at the orientation that we have it. Unfortunately, turning the building so that the exit is not facing the road would mean that there wouldn't be enough room for the entry and the exit to allow all of that to occur on the frontage. And that's partially due because it's a rectangular site. It's rather narrow in the front, and also that access easement that goes coming off of South College Street. It is on our property, so it encroaches into our developable area. So that was the two kind of factors that were working against us. What we were wanting to do is put a dense frontage of landscape in that area so that it will help lessen the visual presence of that exit as you go in, and that way it'll, you're getting the benefit of additional landscape in that area for the aesthetics coming off of South College, and it helps to visually eliminate the eyesore of the exit. And that was, we're happy to work with you if that's not something that you desire as well. But we were in the beginning, we were putting in, walls or things like that would hopefully whatever y'all wanted to do that helped mitigate the eyesore of that. But really, I mean, that in itself would be an eyesore, but landscape, I think, would be a more beneficial thing to have out in front as well. And on top of that, I think the elevation as you exit that is a little bit higher than the road coming from the road on South College. So you have that additional benefit of it being elevated, just so the visual would be such that it wouldn't be quite so, you wouldn't be able to see quite so deep into into the car wash.
Are you withdrawing the request for a variance for a fence?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly it's just keep the landscape, because that's like, once again, we were just wanting to satisfy y'all's needs.
Does anyone have questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for your help.
So we'll open this for a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against the request for a variance, please come forward. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and open board discussion.
So, hey, Steve, I got a question for you. So what's this about oriented at less than a right angle? 45 degrees of right angles, so 44 degrees is less than a right angle? So if they turned the whole thing to 1 degree different, it would be okay? Is that true?
The intent, I'd have to go back and read it now. The intent is that it be perpendicular to the street itself.
So 44 degrees is not perpendicular. The 45 is.
I think it's looking for a 90 degree from the orientation of the roadway.
Okay. So I guess my question is, if they oriented it 44 degrees, would it require a variance?
I'm asking staff, there's a reference to the code in the report, right? Where was that?
It's in section 42906B, and the regulation states that all garage, car wash, service bay openings shall be oriented at not less than right angles to the primary street frontage.
Okay, so
that would be-
46 degrees then.
Or 90.
It'd be 90.
90 would be right angles. So I was wondering where you got the 40 from.
Sorry.
That's what was throwing me
Sorry.
off.
Sorry,
Yeah.
89 degrees.
It's a curious wording. I didn't write it. So, I mean, it
I'm
it
just-
seems
just
to be
looking at it
predicated
because
on the
you could-
fact that
if
it can be
if
exactly 90%.
Yeah, if you were just slightly off of 90, do you need the variance? And if it's that
By
small of a
the
difference-
literal wording of it is looking for 90 degrees, which may be hard to achieve. But I think the subject application before you is not close to 90 degrees. It's completely different from that. So I would base your decision based on certainly the intent of 90 degrees right angle and that it's right now facing
Does
the
it,
street.
yeah, it looks like, it looks 90. I was just looking for other options for making it work other than just if the.
The orientation of the proposed car wash bay today, as shown on the plans, we would consider that to be directly facing the street, so it's 0. It's not 90.
Okay.
I mean, I've looked at this one and gone out there and examined the site, and I understand that the lot is not in perfect shape for what you're proposing to do, but I also don't see how it meets any of the criteria for a variance based on the current code. I'll make a motion to
Second.
Ross Rollins,
yes.
Amy Sorrell,
Yes.
Kim White,
Yes.
Marty Heffron,
Yep.
Harry Boyd.
Okay, so your request for a variance was denied. As I mentioned at the beginning, you have 15 days to appeal the decision. So if you want to talk to city staff about that, you can. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The second item on your agenda this evening is a variance request to section 50202I, which is the performance residential regulations for academic detached dwelling units, also known as ADDUs. The request is to increase the maximum FAR from 45% to 51%. The property is located at 145 Toomer Street in the UNW zoning district. You can see how the site relates to the downtown area. This is the
Is that
can't remember.
Magnolia? Is that 320 Magnolia, or where am I? Or is
This,
that
this
Olive?
is 320 here.
That's 320, okay.
Yep, so I guess
was
that's
Flipped around, okay.
west and right, maybe. But it's almost on the corner of Janelda and Toomer. And the intent of the UNW zoning district is to promote mixed land uses, higher densities for residential uses, and to create a walkable, more urban environment. So that being said, many uses, residential and commercial, are allowed by right. But with that, there are certain lot sizes that are the minimum to do certain types of uses. The current property is a single-family house that's been there, I think, since the 30s. The applicant can confirm all those details when he speaks. But it's a very old house. It's been there for quite some time. Their proposal is to demolish that home and build an academic detached dwelling unit. And the maximum 45% FAR allows for, I think, approximate 2,500 square foot structure. And 51% would allow an additional 304 square feet. Oh, let me go back. I'm not going back. Sorry. Okay. Most of the properties on that side of the street are of that same size, about 5,700 square feet. Most commercial uses, you have to have a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. Most residential uses allow 5,700 square feet lot would allow for townhouses, which has an FAR of 1.5, which is quite greater than what they are requesting. However, that allows for a minimum of 3 units, and they are only desiring 1 unit to build. The area is mixed use. There's residential, commercial, high rises, low rises, single-family houses, all in the neighborhood. The application does not meet the criteria, so we do recommend denial. And the applicant is present and will give you their case for the evening. And if you have any questions from me, I will be glad to answer any. We did get a couple of phone calls and visits from adjoining property owners just requesting information, and I believe one of them is here this evening. So they may have some information to give you as well.
You said a smaller floor plan could be developed to meet this FAR?
It could. The floor plan has 5 bedrooms and 5 baths. And not getting the 304 odd square feet would just have to make the home smaller.
I noticed on the plans there was a swimming pool. Is that included in? How
The
does that
FAR is only the
It's just the
interior
unit.
of the home.
Okay, yeah.
You would never know if the variance was approved or not from the exterior of the house.
Okay.
Let me get back to the site plan, that way y'all can see it. Sorry, guys. It needs big arrows. There it is. There you go. Any other questions?
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
My name's Corey Webb. Thank you all for your time this evening. As Katie explained, one thing I just want to clarify, because I know there's a lot of numbers being thrown around right there. The 5,700 square feet is the approximate square footage of the dirt of the actual lot, nothing to do with the heated and cooled space. 7,500 square feet of dirt is what you need, as she was saying, to go into some of the other uses. We're allowed 2562, and we're trying to do 2866. The additional square footage is, if you could go to the picture of the elevations, please, of the house. Whoever's. Oh, do I do that?
I can do it for you.
I do actually.
It's
We don't get
hard
along
enough for me
well.
to talk up
Me
here.
too.
So I'm sure many of y'all are familiar with a bonus room in your house over a garage. If you have a 3-car garage, that's cheap square footage for you you can extend that. Not here to talk about what it costs or anything, but that extra room is not anything, as you stated, that you would know from the outside whatsoever. It is in the roof of the house. So the space is there already. It's going to be built. I'm saying, providing we go down this road, that roof line is going to be built. It's not going to be, we're not making it any larger necessarily on the lot, the footprint of the house, anything there. So I wanted to be clear on that with everybody. Also going through, I won't read A through G, every single one, I believe. Katie, you could tell me if I'm wrong. I think all of them, y'all were okay with, except D and E, I believe, were the only two that when you say we don't meet the exact criteria, A through G. I can read A through G, the whole sheet for everybody if we want to, but I think D and E were the only ones that y'all would say potentially didn't meet it. So on those, in answering these questions, there's some, the questions weren't always clear either as well. But so it asked for higher, the UNW, when it was rezoned, as it says, is to provide for mixed use, land use, higher densities, and to accommodate the conversion, redevelopment, and growth of residential, commercial, and institutional uses in close proximity to both the university and downtown. The reason that this was done, it states in here too, was at a request by the university to create more housing. ADUs are permitted by right there as well. So we're trying to build 2,866 square feet. If we go with the townhouse route, I can build 8,550 square feet on that lot. And lot line to lot line, lot line to lot line, much more intrusive on any neighbors, anything. That house right there, can still, like I said, nothing about that house changes even if we took that square foot off as far as how it's going to affect the street, affect the neighbors, anyone there. Is there any questions that I can answer? Like I said, I know everybody has places to go. I don't want to go through all of this, but at the end of the day, I want to be clear. All we're asking for is a common sense vote to prevail here. I know variances are hard to give, especially right now, and everybody's asking for things in the city, I'm sure. We'd prefer not to cram the lot full. We're not trying to maximize that density or for profitability or anything like that. This is a good-looking home that, and something that has also been asked over and over by the city is, on these ADUs, I think it's really what brought them all up several years back, was that they all, could only be used for that. This is a home that's designed that, several years it seemed like it was asked over and over, like design it. At one time, we were even going to have to submit plans to get them looked at to make sure that it wasn't just to be used students. So this is a home that could be used for students. If the trends change, a family could live there. Somebody could have it for their game day home. It's a great project for that small of a lot, in my opinion. Appreciate y'all's time. Is there any questions I can answer for y'all?
So how many bedrooms would you have if you did the townhouses? 15 or?
Oh, well, at that point, it would come down to parking, I guess, correct? So,
Okay.
The density in this area is 170 bedrooms per acre. So I think the maximum is 22 that they could have on this lot.
Okay.
22 bedrooms, right?
Correct.
Versus 5. So,
Is that your plan if the variance does not get passed?
I'm representing the owner.
So what you're saying is, though, the house, the way it looks today, would look that way whether you got that or not, right? If the 300 feet or extra, or 302 square feet or whatever it was, it's gonna be the same footprint, same look on the inside, the same look, or the
That's
outside.
right. We're finishing out space in the attic. And again, like she said, people would never know one way or the other. We're doing it. I go
Right.
by the rules. I'm trying to.
Right. So you could have built it, then not ask for a variance, then open it up and get the space.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have any other questions.
If you haven't signed in, if you would please.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Okay, I'll open it to public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against the variance, please come forward.
Well, good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to address the board. I'm Scott Johnson. My wife and I live here in Auburn, and we own two adjoining lots to this to 145 Toomer. We own 135, 141, and 141 is next to 145. And we own 310 Janelda, the Janelda Chase Apartments, which is directly behind the new structure. And our properties, our two properties, are old homes, you know, single-family dwellings. And of course, if someone wanted to live in there as a family, they obviously could and still meet the FAR regulations. But the other thing I'd like to tell you is that these properties have been in the family for over 40 years. And despite the fact that the Auburn Planning Office found that the variances, the requested variance did not meet the requirements for approval, they also recommended non-approval. We don't have any issues at all with the structure being placed on the property. So therefore, I don't have an opinion whether you should approve the variance or whether you should disapprove the variance requested, because it really basically comes down to, do they finish that top floor, make it a livable space, or do they not? Basically, at the end of the day, that's the question. However, as a adjoining property owner of 3 properties in that one block in the urban neighborhood west, is that if my request to the board is that if you do approve the variance, which the Planning Commission said does not meet all the requirements, I would recommend that the FAR of 45% for that entire area be raised to 51%, because in the future, we do plan as a family to redevelop that area. And if we wanted to put a structure there similar to our neighbors, I would hope that we wouldn't have to come make the same case to the board that they're making if in fact you approve it. They should be, because it does establish a precedent to approve a FAR recommendation just because of the size of the facility on that lot. And our lots, 135 and 141 Toomer, are exactly the same lot size as 145. So that's really all I wanted to say, is that, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So hopefully if you do approve it, then you'll take action to readjust how you look at that entire area. Thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind signing in if you haven't.
I have already. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and open to board discussion.
So when I was reading this was the same thing that came up on the March 2nd agenda on Harbor Avenue, where the applicant requested more of an FAR because, well, he needed it for his twin homes, which was less density than the townhouses that he was going to do if he didn't get the variance approved. And I think that amongst us discussing, we liked the idea that it was a less impact with cars and density and parking and whatnot. So I don't really see a difference in this one as we did on March 2nd.
The only thing I'd piggyback at that on, and I can appreciate where you're coming from about the FAR. Unfortunately, as a Board of Variance, we don't make the rules. We're just here to enforce the rules or make a variance if it's appropriate. So that's, sometimes our hands are tied that we can't go and change it from 45 to 51, whether or not that's what everybody in the city wants. We don't have that power to do that. So that's where we're in between the rock and a hard place sometimes as a board to decide. But I do appreciate that this is less impactful for the space down there, and it does impact traffic. You start sticking 22 bedrooms, you're never going to get in and out of Toomer. So
I get that. However, I do not like the "we could always do worse" argument. Like, I'm not saying that the applicant is trying to threaten with that or anything, but that, I don't know. That's not one of our criteria. Is it could be worse.
And
Maybe
I mean,
it should be.
As the applicant stated, the goals are to increase density. So whether we like it or don't like it in that area, then that's with the way the zoning ordinance is written that way for a reason. And I think that it's easy to look into the ordinances and say, well, you know, kind of like what you were saying to me, it's, well, we're not doing this, so shouldn't we be able to do this? But, you know, each of those property types is, you know, it's masked the way it is for a reason. There's parking the way it could be for a reason. Like it's not, it looks like less, but it's different for a reason. So, while townhomes would certainly increase, the bedrooms, I don't think that the argument that would meet the criteria of the zoning ordinance better, that your plan would meet the criteria of the zoning ordinance better, holds. So, and, you know, we're not denying you use of your property, so,
I think this is also a beautiful plan, and it does not look like the ADDUs that I've been in the past that are tiny bedrooms and ensuite bathrooms. And I mean, this has a proper laundry room and a master bath with a shower and separate tub. I mean, there's a lot of square footage in making this more than just an ADDU. I mean, I have to agree with you on that it's game day primary home, ADDU, and so there's just a lot of square footage in making this plan really nice. And I don't know, I could see the 300 square feet in a closet, or, I mean, the laundry room. And
This is a tricky one.
it is tricky because I don't understand why you can do so many different products here and then the FAR changes significantly in the codes. And I know that is what it is, but it seems,
Yeah, I mean, why not maximize that
Problematic.
space? If it's the same footprint, it looks exactly the same from the outside, low density, multi-use, if it gets sold by somebody else, to deny it just seems stupid to me. Because he doesn't have to do this, he could come here and not do this, and then just go ahead and build it out later, but he's trying to do the right thing.
Madam Chairperson. So I think that we are getting to some degree in extraneous conversations on this. There's a lot of variables that might seem important on their face value, but don't necessarily fit into A through G. That, you know, we didn't write the code, but the city adopted a set of regulations that applies in that area, and there are different regulations that apply based on the size of the lot. And so, you know, sometimes people will assemble properties together to get different considerations for something that they can do. I understand it's a minor bit of square footage, but, you know, that's not really what you're focusing on tonight, is that little bit of difference, or the fact that they might be able to do something different. They have a right to do whatever is permitted by the zoning ordinance.
Right.
Yes, and if several people in that area think that 45% is not the appropriate FAR, they can always petition the planning commission to get the zoning changed and change that in the plan. Does anyone else have comments? Okay, I'll make a motion to deny BZ 2022-013.
second.
Ross Rollins. Amy Sorrell.
Yes.
Kim White.
Yes.
Marty Heffron.
No,
Mary Boyd.
no.
So your request for a variance was denied, right? Is that how the vote splits, or does it need to be 4?
Well, he didn't get 4 votes, so it did not pass. 4 affirmative votes for a recommendation for approval.
So-
If you'd like to make a recommendation for approval and then vote on that, I think
Yeah,
that
if
would be
someone wants
permissible.
to move to approve, and we can vote the other way. If that's how it needs to go, instead of moving in the.
I think that would be acceptable.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a recommendation to approve
I'll second.
variance.
Ross Rollins. Amy Sorrells.
No.
Kim White.
No.
Marty Heffron.
Yes.
Mary Boyd.
Yes.
Okay. So your request for a variance was denied. You have 15 days to appeal the decision, and you can talk with the city if you need assistance. Okay, we are going to swap the order of 3 and 4 because our decision of the appeal of the planning director's interpretation will determine whether we need to hear the request for a variance.
Okay, ready? Thank you. So this request, there are, as you mentioned, 2 requests for number 3 and 4 on your agenda. They're both related to the same property in question, 479 Pinedale Drive. Staff has met with the applicant and the property owners on different occasions to discuss the construction and activity that's going on there. So in response to those discussions, the applicant did submit a variance request, and then they also submitted a request to appeal the decision that I made regarding really what is the front property line and where would the front setback line be for measurement purposes for construction on the lot. So we did put in your report, there's a definition there on page 1 for what lot line is. I won't read it to you. You've had time to take a look at that. It does say that for double frontage lots, corner lots, there's a provision that allows for the property owner to choose the direction of the house for the front lot line purposes. So I would say to you that with regard to this lot, as you saw in the report, the subdivision plat was approved in 1931. The house was built in 1937. I couldn't tell you, and I don't think at that time this was not in the code because we did not have zoning at that time, so this provision did not apply. Long and short of that would be that at the time subdivision was approved, there were no setbacks. There was no definition of front lot line versus any other. And when they would have pulled the permit for this, there would not have been, I can't imagine, any consideration of, well, this is the front, that's the rear, any of that really came into to apply to that type of permitting. The zoning for this area is NC 12, and as I mentioned, just gave you 3 dates. The plat in 1931, the house was built in 37. Zoning for the city, the first zoning ordinance that we are aware of was 1950. So in 1950, you would have had the first imposition of some type of regulatory setbacks on the property long after the house was built. Again, at that time the house was built and continuing to today, this house and the house on the adjacent lot that both back up to East Sanford Drive have been oriented toward the north. So both homes are oriented in that direction.
When you say oriented, what do you mean by that?
Like
The front door in the front of the house faces north. Does not face toward either of the street frontages, whether it be Pinedale on the west or Sanford to the south. Vehicular access also comes from the north, in a sense. They both have easements that take the driveways to the front of the house through the adjacent property that's owned by the subdivision. Okay, so they both have access through that little common area, that little park area to the north. See, according to the zoning ordinance, I've already mentioned to you that, yeah, if you're on a corner lot, you can choose which frontage you want to be your front in this day and age. Normally, that would be done, I would expect, at the time you pull a building permit. You come in for a building permit, you're on a corner lot, you bring us a plot plan, it would show the direction the house is facing, and therefore the setbacks come into play based on that orientation and that design of the lot. So while we have no records necessarily to show us what was discussed, if anything, back in that day, we can at least deduce that in 1931, 1937, when the house was built, that whoever built the house treated or considered the front to be the north lot line, because that's the way the house was placed on the property. Calling Pinedale, just a few facts here. If you call Pinedale, looking at this site with the aerial, the front, that would be on the left side of the site. You can see that Pinedale curves into the lot to a significant degree. When you take that curvature into account and then you take the front setback and the rear setback into account in an east-west motion there, right? East-west direction. You end up with, there we go, 32 feet more or less of buildable lot depth, which I would say is not normal on a lot that we would even improve today on a typical subdivision plat. And when you compare that to other lots within the subdivision, some of those lots are 300 feet deep, which would give you well over 100 feet of buildable lot depth, probably 200 feet. So this lot, you remember that some of the variance training that you had recently, even though this is not the variance request, variances are, one purpose of a variance is to take a depressed property that doesn't enjoy the same rights and privileges of other properties within that subdivision or that vicinity and elevate them to where they have equal rights and enjoyment. And so I think this is almost a textbook from this perspective of a variance where 32 feet, and that's not based on something the applicant has done per se. It's not necessarily self-imposed hardship. It's in many ways a hardship that's created by the placement of a zoning ordinance on a property that was created beforehand and didn't take into account any, of course, orientation of the house at that time. So, but that's just to illustrate the depth and the usable lot depth that comes about from applying the zoning ordinance to this lot after the fact. Let's see, what else I wanted to mention to you. Designating the north property line as the front property line for setback purposes would recognize, I believe, the historical nature of the site, the original home orientation and construction of the site, and expand the depth of the lot from a usable standpoint to approximately 100, excuse me, not from a usable standpoint, but just from a lot depth. If you take a look at that lot there on the screen, you've got 138 feet on the bottom, you've got 106 on the top. You take an average of that, maybe you get 120. But then you've got to take that right of way into account, which reduces it even more. So if you compare that to the other lots, like I was saying, they go up from 200 feet in depth, 300 feet in depth. So it's a significant difference from other platted lots within the Pinedale subdivision. Let's see, some of the facts that once staff got into this and started researching this, that we discovered and came to light, put those in the report for you, would be, again, the historical orientation of the house toward the north, which was, I think, considered the front at that time. Vehicle access is also from the north, and that brings vehicles in toward the front of the house. Some of that's written into the documentation that we provided in your packet, some of the old minutes from the HOA that go way back to the 1930s. Application of the current setbacks and definition of a lot line would, I believe, cause a hardship on the property owner and the use and enjoyment of this lot as it is consistent with the traditional orientation of the house. There is an original plat that we provided to you that, of course, does not include any easements, or doesn't show any setbacks, doesn't indicate or have anything that would regulate front, side, rear lot lines. Based on that function, and I wasn't alive in 1931, and I wasn't here in 1931, but I have to look at this and think, okay, in 1931, when this plat was approved, there were no setbacks, so presumably when you pulled a permit for that house, you had the full use and enjoyment of your lot. It didn't say that you had to be a certain distance off of this lot line or that lot line, so that lot would have been more usable for construction purposes. When you throw setbacks on a plat that never had setbacks on it to begin with, I think that does infringe and impinge on the usable space that you would have. And then, let's see, I think treating the north lot line as the front lot line for setback purposes, again, would uphold the intent and the usability of the lot as originally planned. It would be more like the lot to the east, lot 76, which has a much bigger depth for construction on that lot. In summary, I would say that, okay, we also have provided for you Section 908, which gives you some direction on the decision before you tonight. And based on really, I think, the preponderance of a lot of information that we found and discovered as we were going through this review, that there is a lot of evidence that shows that the historic treatment on the lot and consideration of the lot until you had a variance in
98?
Yeah, thank you, 90, I was thinking 89 or 98, where for whatever reason in that case, someone drew something up, just happenstance, that showed the front being off a street, which would be the normal for today. And that's, other than that, there is nothing that is in a record that shows that a different orientation other than the north lot line was considered the front lot line. So I think there's a lot of justification for that. As I've mentioned in the report, because of the history and because of the type of request that this is, staff, I do believe that this type of decision, an appeal of my decision, is the most appropriate review of this type of request. And so I don't think it was a proper tool for a staff administrative decision to say that, this is the front. But I don't have any issue with the Board of Adjustment taking a look at that as an appeal and either concurring with my decision or overruling my decision. So I would mention that to you. And then the last thing I would mention is that as a request before you tonight, the decision that you make, it should be clear that that decision is based on the application of, and with regards to lot 19 and 19 only, is not a decision that impacts the totality of the zoning ordinance as it applies to anything beyond this individual event. And so with that, many of us would be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
I have a procedural question. We don't get appeals of the planning director's interpretations very often. So how do we proceed with this?
I think like you normally would, you would have the opportunity to discuss this amongst yourself. I didn't see anywhere where this is a public hearing. In fact, some of the wording that I read in the code talks about you come together, you discuss this, and it says you have to render a decision within a certain number of days. So I think rendering a decision tonight while we're here in this meeting would be most appropriate. And just like anything else, I think a motion from someone here to say that you believe that planning director is correct in his decision, planning director is in error in his decision, and whatever you want to say beyond that.
So, to be clear, right now, the west property line is the front, and they want it to be the north, and you agree that that makes sense?
I believe it does make sense.
Okay.
So we need to affirm his decision, not appeal his decision. Okay. That, as a point, I was like, we don't want to, and if we affirm his decision to change that, then that means we don't have to have a variance.
agree that the north is the front.
Correct, yeah.
Excuse me, just a point of
I know.
point of information. I was incorrect. So you do have to have a public hearing
Okay.
before you make a decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can do. All right. Okay. Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Flick?
And the applicant is here, so my apologies.
The applicant would like to speak. Please come forward.
Thank y'all for hearing us this afternoon. I'm Ernie Carlson. I'm the representative for the owners, the Laniers. What we've got is a very unique property as it's oriented in regard to the setbacks and whatnot. And as Steve said, if you go by the letter, as far as the setbacks go, we only have a 32-foot 9-inch buildable space from front to back. Which makes it very difficult to do anything. So what we're hoping is you'll agree with our assessment that the orientation as we requested would be changed so that the front entrance of the house actually would be north. The rear entrance would face Sanford. And that's what we're asking for.
Any questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
If you haven't signed in, please do.
I did.
I think you just did.
Okay, well, open to public hearing if anyone wants to speak for or against this appeal. We're on the appeal stage, not the variance stage. Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Briggs, and my father-in-law, Ben Cranford, his family has lived on Pinedale since he was born in 1937. They built their house in 1937. So he is the Pinedale historian that is currently alive. I get to listen to his stories on a regular basis. I hear the same story regularly. And so I wanted to kind of correct the history from a verbal historian. I don't know how much of this you could find documented, but he lived it. And that home, he was there when it was dirt road, things like that. But the home in question, he says, fronted on Sanford Avenue. Those two homes there, according to his recollection, Sanford Avenue was their front.
When you say two homes, are you talking about 76 and 77?
Yes.
Okay.
Over the years, additions have been, obviously, those homes went under renovations, things changed. And the access from the park side was not the original access to those homes, according to me, the historian from Pinedale. So I just wanted to get that on the record, that from somebody who lived back then and played in the neighborhood, that home, the front was really Sanford or the Pinedale side, but not the park side. That was their back. Okay.
Thank you.
If
Thank
you
you
haven't
for
signed
hearing
in,
me.
please do. Would anyone else like to speak?
I'm Aaron Schmidt, and I live on Pinedale. And I think everybody I've talked to is in support of it. It either faces Sanford or it faces the park. The only question I have is if we, on paper and writing, say that the front of the house is on a park, that there's just the least access or an access that was permitted through the park association back in the 30s, does that open up any problems? Does it put the park in jeopardy, having two houses that are facing a park that I think they could actually have access with a driveway on their property still, so I don't think it does. It's more of just your side setbacks aren't going to matter if it fronts the park or if it fronts Sanford. So I agree. I think it's.
I'll see if I can answer his question if you want, and
Yeah.
you can ask it differently if you need to. But there are records that I put in your packet that go back to the 30s that talk about at least lot 20 to the east being granted access through that park. I couldn't find any access records for lot 19, but there were statements in some of those records that had, alluded to both of them having access through that park. I don't think it's in perpetuity. I think that the park in the neighborhood
there's
could.
leases, and they're current leases.
Yeah, it's annual leases, I think, at this point in time. So that could be something that goes away over time. If it did, they would just have to have access probably off of Sanford, at least for lot 20. Lot 19 could access off of Pinedale, literally. But I don't think it binds the hands of the subdivision based on the orientation that we're talking about here. The other thing I would say is that I did forward an email to you, I believe, from another neighbor out there who said he thought that this made sense to them, I think, was to summarize his statements. I forgot to mention that we had those comments. And then also provided you with a floor plan that really was for lot 20, the original floor plan for lot 20, which I believe also showed it being oriented toward the north. Lastly, we've had other conversations with the adjacent owner on lot 20, and he has also expressed his support for this. So,
And it's further than 12 feet right now, if you consider the front. It's like, what was it? If it's granted, it's not even a variance at that point, right?
Right. If the board approves the appeal,
Changing which is the front.
Right.
that's correct. If you approve the appeal, then the variance application is not needed because
even a-
really the east property line, it more than meets the minimum setback requirement as a side lot line.
And I think if any of you guys go out there and look at it,
I did, I drove
We
by
have.
it. So
There's no door, and there's never been a door facing Pinedale.
Right.
It's more of, yeah, I don't think anybody, nobody I've talked to in the neighborhood has an issue with that. Only my concern was just make sure that we're not binding the common space to.
Yeah, and nothing we do sets any precedence for anything. So any decision we make is for that case and that case alone. It does not set a precedent for anything going forward.
I think you'll find it makes sense to go on with it.
Okay.
Thank you. If you haven't signed in, please do. Does anyone else like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and open board discussion. I just want to say, Mary, I like your trick-or-treater standard. That should be a legal
It's not
standard.
about the mailbox, it's about where the trick-or-treaters go. Yeah.
Reader
Which side where the front is.
ever has run to the north
We'll run to that
to
side.
knock on the door.
So, Steve, it looks like your original interpretation is that the front is Pinedale. And so now we would be affirming or, overruling
Yeah.
that.
How do we- what's the
and
best way
saying
to
that
word
it's now
that?
fronts the north.
As it says in the report, let's see, it states
West property line. There we go.
that,
Okay.
I think it states that the board can affirm, deny, or override the decision of the planning director. So my decision was based on the application of today's codes on a site that didn't take into account the historic nature of the
Okay.
property. So
So we need to make a motion to approve the appeal.
you could approve the appeal overriding the decision of the planning director.
Okay.
To declare that the front property line is the north property line for lot 19
Okay.
only.
Does anyone else have comments? Yeah, that was
Thank you
fun.
for
And
the
it's great to
research.
get the historical perspective as well.
The oldest neighborhood in Auburn.
Okay. Please correct me if I do this wrong, but I'm going to make a motion to reverse the decision of the planning director and instead say that the north property line is the front lot line for lot 19 only. Is that right? Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Ross Rollins.
Yes.
Emmy Sorrell.
Yes.
Kim White.
Yes.
Marty Heffron.
Yes.
Mary Boyd.
Yes.
Okay, so that appeal has been granted. The applicant also submitted a request for a variance. Given that decision with the, do I need to ask the applicant to withdraw that variance?
I would ask them if they would like to withdraw their
Yeah.
application.
Applicant, would you like to withdraw your? Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Okay, moving on to other business. Do we have other business?
I do. The only thing I wanted to mention is that rather than bombard you with more emails, August 24th, we have some training set up that will take place, I believe, at the Harris Center. And that will be from, I think, noon to 4 p.m. So will all of you, if you plan on being there, please let myself or Jessica know before you leave. How's that?
And please get your registration form to me if you have not.
And it's just our name and phone.
Yeah, it's just like
contact
simple
sheet.
information,
Okay.
but we just need it to send to them, and we will have lunch.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, chairman's communication. I'm not a man and I don't have any communications. Staff communication.
Nothing else, thank you.
All right, then